Hi, my name is Lee Stavros, owner and instructor at DrumChops Drum School, located in Surprise, Arizona. And I'd like to continue on with our drum lessons that you will find up on YouTube and Facebook. This series is entitled Basic Drums, and the last segment went through the 8th note groove. In this segment, I'd like to continue on to take that groove and show you how to do some basic drum fills that go along with it. And there's a couple of things that you need to keep in mind with drum fills. One is, of course, that you want to make sure that when you do a fill, you do it in time, and that when you come back at the same tempo that you started with. So you don't want to either speed up or slow down the tempo as you go through the fill, right? Because the band's going to expect that you come back on one with the tempo that you started with. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is that the fill that you play has to be, how do I put this? It's got to be right for the song that you're playing. It doesn't make sense to take a simple song and put, like some kind of Buddy Rich fill in there. You need to be playing for the music at all times. So if the music calls for you to play, a Neil Peart fill, then, practice up and get your chops together, and, hopefully you'll be able to put one in there and come back on time. If the song is a simple song, then, your Neil Peart fill is going to have to wait for later. And, what you should be doing here is you should be concentrating on a nice, simple, but effective fill. The last thing that I try and do is I try to keep the fills a little bit fresh. I try not to play the same fill all the time over and over and over again through the song. It's just going to get boring. It's going to get boring for you, and it's going to get boring for the listener. So I try to mix things up a little bit. So, let's take a look. Let's go back to our basic rock 8th note pattern that we saw in the last segment. We had our bass drum on 1, 2, 3, 4, snare drum on 2 and 4, and then 8th notes played with the right hand on the right cymbal. So something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and go. All right, so if that's our basic groove and we have that kind of tempo, then we have to start thinking, all right, we're going to take, let's say we're going to take a measure fill. A measure is 4 beats, right? Because we're playing in 4/4 time. 4 beats to the measure, quarter note gets the beat. So, if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. That 4, 2, 3, 4, that's the space that we're going to use for our fill. Okay, so we're going to do something simple. We're just going to play quarter notes with the bass drum and the snare drum on 4, 2, 3, 4, and then come back in on 1. So 3 measures of the rock groove and 1 measure of fill coming back in on 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, great. So now, the next thing to do from there, instead of getting more complex, let's work on taking that simple fill and move it around the drum kit, right? So maybe you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can do a crash on 1 with your bass drum, and as long as you can get back in for the and to keep the groove going, right? So it's like, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, great. So, and now you could do all different kinds of combinations. You don't just have to go around the drums that way. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, you can hit with both hands, you know, on a 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, anything that you can think of, you know, we're still playing quarter notes, right? But it's going to sound so much different depending on what drum you decide to put that fill in. So let's move on a little bit. Let's you know, add an eighth note in there. All right. So play maybe 3 and 4 and as a fill. So we'll have quarter notes and again we're talking about the fourth beat of the fourth measure here. So the first 2 beats we'll play quarter notes 1, 2, and then we'll play 3 and 4 and. You know, something like this. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. All right. So that's going to be the fill. Let's work on that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2. 3. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. 3 and 4 and 2. And 3. 4, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. Okay. Good. So now the next thing is to take that simple pattern and move that across the drums. In various patterns, you know, whatever feels good. And again, making sure that you're keeping time, right? Keeping time through the fill and back in on 1, right? So we don't lose the group. All right, so let's try that. I'll do various moving around of just 3 and 4 and. 1, 2, I'll keep quarter notes on the snare, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 4, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and good. All right, so you can see all the different sounds that you can get, and you know, basically just using my 5-piece kit here, moving those last 2 eighth note groupings around the kit. You know, still coming back on 1 and still keeping the time good throughout. Now, let's say we're going to get a little bit more complicated here. We're going to play eighth notes throughout the entire measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I mean, that's the groove. That's the groove that you're playing on the hi-hat. So now we're just going to take that. We're going to move it across. Again, we're going to start simple. All 4 beats, eighth notes on the snare drum. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 2 and 3. 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, great. Now, logically, next step here, right, is to take those eighth notes and move them around the drums. Again, keeping time throughout, and again, making sure that you're going to crash and keep your foot, you know, crash on 1. You know, what I usually do is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, right? So 1, I'll have a crash and a bass drum hit for emphasis, letting everybody know that this is the end. We're coming back in. The band's with me. Okay, so let's try this. We're gonna play the same beat, same groove, and take the entire measure, the entire fourth measure as a groove, using all eighth notes around the drum kit. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 2. 3, 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 3 and 4 and 2 and 3. 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 3 and 4 and 2 and 3. 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 3 and 4 and 2. 3 and 4 and 3. 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 2 and 3 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 and 4 and 2 Okay, great. Now, a lot of times it's difficult for people to, make sure that they're playing in time, especially if you're practicing on your own. The idea of using a click or using a drum machine or using, a computer with, some kind of, musical, click or hand clap or something like that on 2 and 4 maybe to help you keep time while you're playing will let you know that, you're not only are you keeping the groove good, but you're able to play the fill, in that same time, and come back on one without losing anything. All right, so I have a drum machine here. It's a Boss DR670, and I programmed in some simple bass lines. And the bass lines have there's like 2 or 3 different ones, and one is a little bit more complex than the others, so that may be something where musically you don't want to put a real busy fill in there, you can maybe try and play with the bass player if you can do that, or just lay out and let that measure or 2 measures whenever he's playing that lick go while you're just keeping steady time. And then when the bass is playing a more standard groove that's got a lot of openings, then you can play your fill. Typically what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and keep with same thing, 3 measures of groove and a measure of fill. So let me show you this, and we'll go through it a couple of times and see what kind of fills we can come up with. Okay, so here we go. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay, great. So you saw there were times when the bass player was playing do-do-do-da-da-do, and I laid out, or I played, maybe just at the end of the measure, 1 and 3 and 4 and something like that, and give the bass player a little bit of room to breathe there. Every other fill that I did, I tried to make sure that I was playing the 8th notes, playing them in time, and coming back on the 1 so that we weren't losing it. Okay, so for those people counting, this is a 32-bar loop with 3 different bass grooves where it moves from one to the other, and then at the very end, there's that kind of busy fill, do-do-do-da-da-do, 4 times, so you know where the end is. All right, so I'm going to go through it one more time. Again, my name is Lee Stavros, owner and instructor at DrumChops Drum School. We're located in Surprise, Arizona. You can find us on the web at www.drumchops.com. You can also find us on YouTube. The channel is AZdrumchops, so just youtube.com, AZdrumchops. And you can also find us on Facebook. Again, facebook.com, AZdrumchops. All right, so for now, I'm going to end with this groove. I hope you had a great time, and come back and check out. We're going to be doing more of these, and I hope you find them interesting. Thank you.